Okay, students, we now see another example with functions to explain the scope of identifiers. The task of this program is to calculate the area of a circle, rectangle, or a square as per the choice input by the user from a menu and find the area of that figure. It also takes a necessary input from the user. For example, if the user wants to calculate the area of a circle, it will take a radius as input. If area of a square is needed, then it will take the side of a square as input, and if the area of a rectangle is needed, then length and breadth of the rectangle will be taken as input. Now this is the solution of this program. You can see this program completely, but we'll first talk about the functions of this program. See, this is the first function. This is having name area circle, and it is taking an input argument by name radius. Now and there is another variable by name area, which is being calculated as pi r square, the usual mathematical formula for the area of circle. And then this function is returning this value of the area variable. Similarly, there is another function by name area square, and it is taking an input the side of the square, and it is also calculating the area of square and returning it. Now you should note that the same variable name area is being used in the two functions. It leads to no confusion. It is completely valid because the two functions have different scopes. That means the variables of this function and the variables of these functions remain entirely different from each other in the memory. So this area variable remains in a different area of memory, and this area variable remains in a different area of memory. Okay, so they have nothing to do with each other. They don't even know that they are having the same name. They are entirely different. Similarly, then you see that there is another function by name area rectangle, which is having two input arguments, length and breadth, and then it is also having another variable by name area, which is again different from the two area variables defined earlier in two different function scopes. This is the third area variable, and all these three area variables are different from each other, and it is calculating it by length multiplied by breadth formula and then returning this area variable. So these are the three function definitions in our program. Now one thing you should be very clear about is that these are only definitions. Okay, nothing is executed by these definitions. These are just kept in memory, these definitions. These functions do not execute until they are called by your program. You have to call them somewhere. Usually your main program calls a function, but it may be that one function may call another function. Okay, so be sure that a function does not execute until it is called by some part of your program. Okay, so now we turn to our main program. The main program begins here. What this does is, it first creates a menu by this print statements. It presents a menu which provides the choice that if the user wants to find the area of a circle, the user should input 1. If area of square is needed, 2 is to be input, and if area of rectangle is needed, 3 is to be input. This is on the menu for the user. Now the choice of the user is being input in a variable by name choice using the int and input functions as shown here. Now after this, what happens that we check what the choice was input by the user. If choice happens to be 1, then that means user wants to find the area of the circle. Then what we do, we need to take the input, necessary input. What is the input required to calculate the area of a circle? We need the radius of the circle. So we use the input function to give a message to the user and enter radius, and the radius is entered and stored in the variable by name radius. Again, notice that this main program is having a variable by name radius, and similarly our area circle function also had a variable argument by name radius. Again, these two radius variables are different. The radius variable in main program is different from the radius variable in the area circle function, because the scopes of these two are different. Okay, now next what happens is the area is found using the area circle function, and the radius value which was input by user is being passed to this function. Okay, so what exactly is happening here is that the radius value which was input by user is being supplied to this function. Actually the value of this radius, the main program's radius variable, is being copied in the radius argument variable of area circle function. Okay, this is how the value of radius is being passed from the main program to this function. Okay, next what happens that this area circle function calculates the area and returns to the main program, and the main program holds this value of area in the variable by name area. Again we are using the variable name area, but this variable is a fourth area variable which belongs to the scope of the main program. It is different from the three area variables created earlier by three functions. Okay, next what we do is to print the area of the circle. Similarly, if the choice happens to be 2, that means the user wants to find the area of a square, then we request the user to input the side of the square, which is being stored in the variable by name side. Again notice that the main program is using a variable by name side, and we already have a variable by side in this function area square, which is acting as the input argument. Again this side variable of this area square function and this side variable of the main program are different from each other, because they are variables of two different scopes, and they are actually two different variables in memory. Next, area is calculated using the by calling the area square function. Okay, so here we are calling this area square function, and it is now that this function will execute. Okay, similarly when we called this area circle function here, it then only that area circle function was executed, and now we are calling this area square function, and it is now that this function will be executed, and the side the value of the side variable which was input by the user is being supplied here as an argument, and it is copied in the side variable of the area square function. Finally, the area square function calculates the area of the square and it returns it, which is being copied in the variable by name area. See, this is another this area variable we have already discussed. This is the variable which belongs to the main program, which is different from the three area variables defined by three functions. Now if choice happens to be 3, then the length and breadth of the rectangle are input, and the area of a rectangle is calculated by calling the area rectangle function, and length and breadth values are being passed to this function, and area is calculated, it is returned by this function and again stored in the variable by name area. And finally the print statement is used to print the area of the rectangle. And in the else part, if if the user choice happens to be none of 1, 2 or 3, then we are printing invalid choice. Now there is a one slight correction here. In place of if here, you should consider elif here. This is elif. Okay, thank you.